The Bengals are in a place that we never thought they would be. 1-4 for the first time since 2007. Thoughts on Joe Burrow, a defense that has been awful, and much, much more right now on Enter the Jungle. Hi again, everyone, and welcome in to Enter the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He is Andrew Fox Miller, and this is Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Catch us every single Tuesday at 8 Eastern right here on CBT. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, grab a garage beer while you're at it, and make sure that you check us out weekly as well on Bally Sports. And let's dive in, Andrew, because this team, they're 1-4, reeling. They've lost 4 games by a combined 15 points. They should have beat the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday. They did not beat the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday. Had they done that, by the way, they would be 2-3 and in second place in the AFC North and just a game behind the Steelers. Instead, they're tied with our good friends up there in Cleveland, the big play guys in the AFC North cellar. Let's start here. Joe Burrow has been awesome, and yet this team is 1-4. What comes to mind right now when you think of the 2024 Cincinnati Bengals?
Oh man. I do think about this, right? I think about this particular game, for instance, and when going back and thinking about, hey, remember week 5 of the 2024 season? Okay, well, what was that game? That was the game when Zach Taylor ran 3 running plays in overtime. That'll be the defining, way to identify this game. And this season is going to be, remember the 2024 season, the season when they had everything going for them on paper from a personnel standpoint. We thought this offense was going to be on fire, and they are. This was the season that the offense had everything going for it, and the defense is just nothing is clicking at all, to the point where look at the results. Look at the results. I can't even fathom like any other scenario where there's any other difference on a spectrum between a defense and an offense for this team right now.
Joe Burrow, over the past 3 games, is completing 75% of his passes. Joe Burrow, over the past 3 games, has thrown for nearly 1,000 yards, 948 yards, 10 touchdowns, 2 picks, 1 against Carolina when the game was basically over. And they're 1-2. Jamar Chase has nearly 400 of those receiving yards over the past 3 weeks, a 41-yard touchdown or more, 5 total touchdowns over that span. They're 1-2 over that span. It's unbelievable. You're right. They're wasting this elite offense, this offense that in my mind when they drafted Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and I saw them in 21, but they had a flawed offensive line and they were piecing it together at tight end. This is the offense that we've always envisioned. An offense that can go under center, an offense that can play in the shotgun. They can win with tight ends or win with running backs. We talked about it on last week's show.
Mm-hmm.
This is it. They did it against the Ravens. That was the ultimate test to see if they could, and they did that. They hung 36 on their head. 38 with the safety. Should have been 41 if Ryan Rico could hold. And yet, we're looking at it, and they're still 1-4. And that's my fear. We didn't plan on talking about this in the show in our rundown. Scrap the rundown. My fear is that they're wasting Joe Burrow here, that they're wasting one of the. I mean, think about the wrist and how we talked about it all offseason. Did you see that throw to Andre Yosevach? Those throws to Jamar Chase? Like that wrist is just fine. He was pushing the ball down the field, and the Bengals have losses, not wins to show for it.
Not just wasting Joe Burrow, obviously. Like, you've got Jamar Chase just playing out of his mind. You've got an offensive line that we have just been waiting for. We were waiting for during an actual Super Bowl game one day, that offensive line. Could you imagine if Joe Burrow just had an offensive line? Here it is. Looking back at 2024, yeah, it very well could be an offense that is what every Bengals fan had dreamed about, wasted.
Yeah, I think the thing that can't happen and has happened is when you have a defense, and we're going to get to the defense in just a few minutes. When you have a defense that is as flawed as the Bengals defense is, Joe Burrow said it last week, right? I have to play, I'll say darn near perfect. I had to play damn near perfect. And he did. The problem is it's not just Joe. You know who else has to play near perfect? Dejon Anthony, week 2 against the Kansas City Chiefs. You know who else needs to be perfect? Ryan Rico, Zach Taylor, all of these other pieces. And obviously, Zach is the most important of those in those situations. But and that's what's tough is Zach makes a mistake. He should have thrown it on one of those plays. Ryan Rico makes a mistake. Dejon Anthony gets there maybe a tad early, or doesn't get his hand on the ball. So then the official, it leaves it open, gray area for the official to make the call. Like all of these things are why they've lost 4 games by a total of 15 points. And they're like little things. And it's because the
Yeah.
margin for error, even with an elite offense, with a bad defense, is still pretty darn thin. It's just much different than we're used to because we're used to the offense figuring out a way with a bad offensive line and the defense being pretty good. That's not the case anymore. The offensive line is pretty good. In the defense, I'm really not sure they could guard me, Andrew.
Right. You know what? And I resign any hope that we even have an average defense at this point. Give me slightly below average. Maybe even give me just below average. And then we're not talking about little blemishes that decide the entire outcome of a game. Can't have it.
Yeah. Yeah. The deciding the outcome of a game. Let's get into it real quick. Zach Taylor, after the game, I asked him about overtime. 3 straight runs. You get the ball on the 38-yard line of the Ravens. You're in Evan McPherson field goal range. They run it, no gain, run it again, 3-yard gain, run it again on 3rd and 7, no gain. Here's what Zach Taylor had to say after the game.
When you guys get the ball back in overtime after Pratt recovers that fumble, what's the mindset there?
It's just trying. We're in field goal. We feel like we're in field goal range, and you know there is. We've thrown the ball in that situation before. We called the pass. Joe actually did a great job getting us out of it back into a run because the look was not there to throw it. And so there was good management by him. Still got a couple yards out of it, and then we're in a position to win the field goal, and we thought we'd win it with that. A sack, a holding penalty, all the things that can knock you back. You know, so when you're in field goal range and you believe in your kicker, it really is as simple as that.
All right, Andrew. So that's what Zach had to say. Obviously, everyone had an issue with it. What were you thinking in real time? We haven't talked about this. What were you thinking in real time as it happened, and how do you feel about it now?
So what I expected Zach to do, in terms of tone, I guess he did do, but I always expect him to give his, hey, you know, we thought we had this opportunity. We thought it was the best outcome. This went according to our plan and blah, 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 blah. I was just expecting that. And if you really aren't listening, I suppose it does come across like that. Typical post-game presser. But yeah, I can't help but sit back and look at the contrast with what all the other players are saying right now. And you've got, you know, a slant route by Jamar. Jamar's like, hey, that's on me. Burrow's like, hey, Burrow's crediting Marlon Humphrey. Like, that was just a great play. Like, everyone is either giving praise to somebody or absorbing blame. And I feel like Zach Taylor usually is the type that would do that right up front. And he didn't this time. And I don't know that I'm not trying to read between the lines too much here, but it is interesting to me.
Yeah. And he basically doubled down on Monday afterwards saying, yeah, we're in field goal range, confident in our operation, confident in our kicker. That's what I would do. What I would say is, all right, 3rd and 7, you can't say, Joe, if you're pressured, just throw it away. Like, throw it down at Zach Moss's feet, put Zach Moss in there, have him run into the flat. Like, that's what I keep coming back to. And in the mindset, you get the ball at the 38, you're in Evan McPherson's field goal range. Well, he could miss. And you know what you don't want to do if he does miss? Give the Ravens great field position late in overtime. And I think that's the lesson here is you got to take a broader view of it. Everyone's going to say, well, Joe was awesome. You got to put the ball in Joe's hands. And I agree with that to an extent. I also think there's more nuance to it. 50-yard field goal is no gimme, even for Evan Money Mac McPherson. And so if he had missed it, he did, and it wasn't necessarily his fault, but he missed it. Guess what? The Ravens get great field position. Derrick Henry does his thing, and the game's over. So those things have to be cleaned up because it's someone every week. Zach Taylor game, Sam Hubbard stiff arm game, Geno Stone game. Like, there's all these things that went wrong. A lot went right, but most of the wrong was on defense, and it's time to discuss the defense. The Bengals defense has been awful. We will discuss Geno Stone and company coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox Miller. I'm James Rapien. We're part of the Big Play Network. You can catch us every single Tuesday at 8 Eastern on the YouTube channel Cincinnati Bengals Talk and weekly on Bally Sports. And we're brought to you by Garage Beer. Grab a Garage Beer today. Beer-flavored beer.
I sure didn't just have one before starting this segment. I mean, what's
okay, Andrew? And I had one of those cold ones over the weekend on Saturday. It was very, very nice. No, it was lovely. It was my last lime of the summer, and it was mighty, mighty good. You know what was mighty, mighty bad, awful? Maybe Lou Anarumo needs a Garage Beer too to figure out this defense. This Bengals defense has been awful. Everyone knows that. It doesn't take us to tell you that. And so we're not going to sit here and continue to say that. But maybe it's like time for a superlative. I didn't come up with superlatives, but what are you concerned about most on defense, Andrew? We know they're bad. At all three levels, they've been bad. So as of today, what are you most worried about going into Sunday's matchup against New York?
Like a lot of people, I've been really concerned about the defensive line, the ability to stop the run, all of that. But as each game goes by, and especially after this particular game, I think that you probably, for the most part, could be functional with like a Trey Hendrickson doing most of the work in terms of pressure and having a decent interior. You can still give up big runs. It's just going to happen. This secondary, especially safeties. But I said it this whole offseason too with cornerbacks. Where's the answer if some of this doesn't work out? Whoa, it's not working out. What are we going to do? And now on top of that, this one thing that I thought was almost like a slam dunk with Von Bell, Geno Stone, I thought we didn't even have to worry about safety anymore. Now look at us. So this is a huge concern for me right now, is this defensive backfield. I don't know what the solution is. With the people they have right now, unless they just turn it around, I don't know what they're going to do.
It's so funny you say that, because I'm here to make the declaration. The Bengals safeties in 2024 are worse than the safeties in 2023. And I'm going to say it again so everyone can hear me loud and clear. Nick Scott and Dax Hill and Jordan Battle last year are better than Geno Stone, Von Bell, and Jordan Battle this year. I don't know why. I don't know why Geno Stone can't make a play on the ball when that's why they brought him in here, is to be a deep safety that was a ball hawk. 7 interceptions last year. A guy that puts himself in position to get batted passes or tipped passes, or I don't know, a tight end in the end zone after Sam Hubbard gets stiff-armed into the ground. You can keep up with Isaiah Likely, and Geno Stone did not do that. Von Bell, communication. Where's the communication? All I saw was Charlie Kolar, a tight end that no one had on their fantasy team. Why is it relevant? Because he's not a big part of the Ravens passing game. Have a huge, huge day. Mark Andrews has been off full all season long. Guess what? Had a big day. And Isaiah Likely had 2 touchdowns. You can't have these tight ends just go crazy. And they're slow. It doesn't look like they're as instinctual as you would expect. I agree with you, because I actually think that when Sheldon Rankins comes back and you have Sheldon Rankins, BJ Hill, Chris Jenkins, Lawrence Guy, like, you can be okay in the trenches with Miles Murphy, Sam Hubbard behind Trey Hendrickson, and Joseph Osai there too. Like, you could see the trenches being okay. I don't know what's going to happen at safety. Like, do you go to Tyson Anderson? By the way, I love Tyson Anderson. He's the best athlete in that safety room right now. It's why I wouldn't have moved Dax Hill from safety this offseason. And I said it this offseason, go check the receipts for those wondering. And now they're slow, and it feels so weird on the back end, because all of the concerns that you had last year, they're back. And I think it is worse. And that's the thing that they thought they fixed with Von Bell and Geno Stone, or Geno Stone and Von Bell, and they haven't. So I agree with you. That is my biggest concern, because at least the defensive line, we knew that lacked depth, but at least they can get healthy. This secondary, up until Dax Hill's injury, and we'll get to Dax in a second, has been healthy, and look how they're playing.
And that defensive line was absolutely gutted to start this season, and they were able to find some okay reinforcements, somebody that actually could just function out there on that line. They didn't even attempt that this offseason with corner. So now what? What are you left with? And then if you're going to actually bring someone from the outside, Are you better off, or do we have to wait 5 weeks to figure that out? It's just a mess mid-season. I don't know. Again, don't know the solution for this, but man, it's going to have to come down to coaching. You're going to have to change the plan. You're going to have to change the scheme. You're going to have to change what these players are expected to do, because it's not come together in 5 weeks.
Well, they have 5 safeties on the roster. They're paying Geno Stone. They brought Von Bell back. Jordan Battle invested a high pick in him, a 3rd-round pick. Tyson Anderson's a draft pick who, by the way, can tackle. We saw him make a big tackle on special teams. Like, I'm dead serious about the Tyson Anderson element here. He runs a sub 4.4, ball hawk in the preseason. Maybe he can give you what you thought Geno Stone was supposed to give you. I don't know. Just an idea. The guy that Geno Stone and Von Bell replaced, well, he just happened to be the top corner on the team as well. We're going to discuss Dax Hill's injury coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox-Miller. I'm James Rapien, and Bengals cornerback Dax Hill, former 1st-round pick, suffered a torn ACL in Sunday's game against the Baltimore Ravens. He's obviously out for the season. Zach Taylor talked about this, how gutted he felt for Dax, and I'm sure he does. This is just a nightmare. It's a nightmare because Dax Hill is the most egoless 1st-round pick maybe in NFL history. Played 3 positions as a rookie. Played safety, nickel corner, outside corner. Had to deal with the whole Jesse Bates, will they pay him, will they not? Von Bell, will they pay him, will they not? They didn't pay either of the guys. And then he comes in and plays safety. Plays it at a pretty high level for about half the year, and then it started to taper off, and he struggled at the end of last season. Gets replaced after 1 year of starting, gets replaced, and those guys aren't playing well. Moves to outside corner, and what do you know? He's their best outside corner. He was their best safety last year, but it wasn't good enough. And now best, and he was, by the way, for 17 games. I know Jordan Battle was good for the sample size he was in, but best safety last year. And then through 4 weeks, he's clearly their best cornerback. And now he's out for the year. I'm so annoyed at the Dax usage, lack thereof. He was getting jerked back and forth, never complained once. Even Andrew, when I'm like, hey man, like, and I'm just talking to him, just like that, one-on-one, just chatting with him. Never once complained about his role. And for him to have a season-ending injury, it just sucks because he's someone that has handled it all, was emerging as their top cornerback, and now he's going to be out probably until training camp.
I know you are a big Dax Hill fan. I love Dax Hill as well, but I wanted to let you cook on this segment because I know this fires you up like crazy. But I have to ask though, real quickly. Yeah. There's no real right answer here. It's unfortunate. I felt that my first instinct too. I felt awful for Dax Hill because of just nothing but transition, and now this. What do they do about a 5th-year option? I know there's no easy answer, but what do you do?
Yeah, I think we know the answer. And that's what sucks even more. You know, no, I think he's very much entering a prove-it year now. And I hate it because there's a chance that they looked at it and they said, hey, let's keep him around. Let's exercise that 5th-year option because he is that darn good. And unfortunately, not. And the thing that I love about Dax at corner, you just never noticed him. He wasn't involved. He didn't have a bunch of tackles, 25 tackles in 4 games, because a lot of those plays weren't going his way. And a lot of his tackles, he's peeling off and making plays against the run. So Dax, get well soon. Really, really annoyed and I just hate it. But the Bengals are 1-4, and it's time to shift gears. Will they rebound? The path to that coming up next. The Bengals are 1-4, but could they make the postseason? Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He's Andrew Fox-Miller. Andrew, 1-4 for the first time since 2007, which was one of the biggest underachieving teams that I can remember, certainly Bengals teams of my lifetime. What do you think? You think that this team is going to rebound after 1-4?
I think they're certainly capable. Look what this offense is doing. We're going to keep saying it week to week. Can this defense actually just be functional? Can that happen? Because sure, mathematically, the window's still there. It's not a It's not a window I feel very confident in,
That's a tiny window.
but
That's a Mike Hilton window. It's not a big window.
I understand that.
That's not a Marius Mims window. No.
And it's going to be, I know this is going to sound very much like a Zach Taylor, or even to a certain degree, Joe Burrow. Focus on the next game, week to week, this
Go
and
ahead,
that. But the
Andrew
reality
Taylor.
is,
Let's go, Andrew Taylor.
the reality is, I mean, first of all, Giants, what have they scored? The most they've scored this season, regular season. They just scored 29 on Seahawks. They hadn't scored more. And my point is that this offense can outscore most other offenses. However, what's this defense going to do? James, I want to just point out one thing quickly, because this whole Jay Morrison on SI, BengalsTalk.com, he posted this whole thing about a 1-4 start and playoff hopes. Pointed out, never in the previous 13 seasons the Bengals rallied to make the playoffs, and any time that they started that way. Okay. But here's where we go with history. Here's where we go with stats. 2019, Dalton Finley. 2008, Fitzpatrick. And that's just looking at the last, 15 to 20 years? Mm-hmm. My point being that you can look at it that way, and I think it's an interesting stat, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, this offense, this quarterback, I'm not going to look at stats and assume that this is what they're up against.
Sure, I get that. Doubt Joe Burrow if you want to. I get that too. He's playing at a high level. He's been the best quarterback in the NFL for the past 3 weeks. I mean, it's not even debatable. It's really, he's been awesome. And especially with that defense, especially with what's been around him. So yeah, I think they have a shot, and it's about getting a win. And until you get a win and then get another win, people aren't going to buy it. So we'll see if they can do it. That is going to do it for us here on Enter the Jungle. For Andrew Fox Miller, I'm James Rapien. Thank you so much for watching Enter the Jungle.